Good morning and welcome everybody to this licensing subcommittee, which has been convened to determine an application for a premises licence variation in respect of the Aldi store at Girling Street, Sudbury. In accordance with the hearing regulations, applicants and parties making a representation to the application have a right to attend hearings determining those applications, and accordingly it will be run in accordance with that. The procedure will start with some preliminary housekeeping and agenda items that will need to be dealt with. Then there'll be some pre-hearing introductions and a couple of formalities to deal with that. Once the hearing proper starts, it will take the following format. Firstly, there will be a report from the licensing officer who will outline the application. Then the applicant will be asked to present the case for the application to the subcommittee, followed by any other persons that have made representations in respect of the application. There may be questions asked for each of the presentations made, but just a reminder that the questions should be in relation to the presentations and for seeking clarification, etc. Once all parties have made their representations, there may be some summing up by the licensing officer if required, and the applicant will have the final summing up. There may be some final questions from the members just to clarify any issues. The subcommittee will then go into private session to determine the application, and as quickly as they can, they will return to the open meeting to make the decision. So firstly, I shall go over to Councillor Margaret Maybury, who is the chair of the Licensing and Regulatory Full Committee, so is going to chair this subcommittee today. Over to you, Councillor.
Thank you very much, Mr. DeLue. Yes, my name's Margaret Maybury and I am chairman of the Licensing and Regulatory Committee at Babergh District Council. Welcome to this virtual meeting of the Licensing Subcommittee. I would like to remind everyone present that this meeting will be broadcast live to YouTube and will be capable of repeated viewing. The meeting will be recorded except where there are confidential or exempt items. If you make a representation to the meeting, you will be deemed by the council to have consented to being recorded. By entering this meeting as a speaker, you are also consenting to be recorded by the council and to the possible use of those sound recordings for webcasting and/or training purposes. The council, members of the public and the press may record, film, photograph or broadcast this meeting when the public and the press are not lawfully excluded. Please ensure that microphones are muted when you are not speaking, that you do not interrupt other speakers, that if you are attending the meeting to speak and persistently interrupt the meeting, you may be asked to leave. Additionally, you will be invited to speak and ask questions by the chair, me. Please await your turn. Thank you. I am now going to move on to the agenda, and item 3 is apologies for absence.
Thank you, Chair. We've received apologies this morning from Councillor Ayres.
Thank you very much. And we have a substitute. Would you like to introduce yourself, please? Councillor Nunn.
Councillor John Nunn.
Thank you very much. Item 4 is declarations of interest by councillors. Are there any declarations of interest, please?
No, Chairman.
Councillor Nunn?
No. None.
Thank you. None from me either. Thank you. I am now going to conduct the introduction so everyone is aware of who everyone is. As I said, my name's Margaret Maybury. I'm the chairman of the Licensing and Regulatory Committee. And now I'll ask my other colleagues to introduce themselves.
Morning, I'm Councillor Sue Carpendale and I'm the Vice Chairman of the Licensing and Regulatory Committee.
Thank you.
Good morning, I'm Councillor John Nunn, representing the Long Melford Ward and member of the Licensing and Regulatory Committee.
Thank you very much. And now I'm going to ask the officers in attendance to introduce themselves, and I'll begin with Mr. DeLu, please.
Hello, yes, I'm Nigel DeLu. I'm the legal business partner for the council and I'm legal advisor to this subcommittee.
Thank you.
My name's Catherine Green and I'm the licensing officer for Babergh Mid Suffolk.
Thank you.
Good morning, I'm Kerry Chandler and the licensing officer for Babergh Mid Suffolk.
Thank you.
Good morning, Karen Sayer, governance officer.
Thank you very much.
Bethany Webb, trainee governance officer.
Thank you very much. And we also have Alicia Norman, who is in the background, and she is in charge of the IT and the live streaming. If you see the name, that is who it is. So thank you very much. I'm now going to ask the applicant to introduce themselves, please, or if they are represented, ask the representative to make the introductions, please.
Hello, my name's Lisa Gilligan and I represent Aldi Stores Limited for this application.
Thank you very much. And I also ask you, Ms. Gilligan, have you received the procedure report and copies of the relevant notice?
Yes, thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you very much. And other persons who are present, we have Mr. Finnegan. Would you like to introduce yourself, please?
Yes, thank you, Chair. My name is David Finnegan and I live adjacent to the Aldi store.
Thank you very much. Are there any other members of the public present that I haven't asked to introduce themselves? I don't think so. No. I'm now going to ask whether either party, either of you, do you wish to withdraw the application or the representation? Ms. Gilligan?
No, I don't wish to withdraw it. We have an amendment to it which I can make during my submission, but not to withdraw.
Okay, thank you very much. Mr. Finnegan?
No, I don't wish to withdraw, thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you. And my question to the licensing officer, or questions, is have there been any requests from the parties for permission to call witnesses, please?
No, Chair.
Thank you. And have the parties indicated they wish to present documentary or other material?
No, Chair.
Ms. Gilligan has already declared that she has an amendment, which Mr. DeLu, are you happy that we hear this in the next part, in part 5?
Yes, that can be done during the presentation, that's fine.
Thank you very much. Thank you. I'm going to now ask the applicant to estimate the time required to present the case to the committee, please.
Could I just double check the time required, make sure I don't go over? Is there a limit?
No, we don't have a limit.
Oh, right, okay. I know some people do.
A reasonable amount of time.
No, you get clocks and they count down. And so I thought I'd better just double check. Thank you very much, Chair. Thank you very much, members of the committee. Just by way of background, this application was originally submitted on behalf of Aldi.
Ms. Gilligan, I'm just asking if you have an estimate of the time. We haven't quite started.
Gosh, 5 minutes?
Okay. Not long, thank you.
No, I'll be as brief as possible. Obviously, happy to take questions, but I'll be as brief as possible. It's not strictly adhered
to. It's just a general.
Just a general timing. Yeah. Thank you. And I asked the same question of Mr. Finnegan.
Yes, there should be a couple of moments reading out what I've got to say. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you. And now we move on to item 5 of the agenda, which is the hearing. And I'm going to ask the licensing officer, Catherine, to present her report, which is B/LA/21/2. And I'll hand over to Catherine, please, and thank you.
Thank you, Chair. This hearing is to determine an application made to vary the premises licence made under Section 34 of the Licensing Act 2003 for Aldi Stores Limited in relation to the premises of Aldi, Girling Street, Sudbury, Suffolk. The application was received by the Licensing Authority on the 27th of October 2021, and a copy of this is attached to this report as Appendix B. The application made has been subject to the statutory consultation period as prescribed by regulation. The notices advertising the application have been on display at the premises and published in the press. The main element of the variation seeks to alter the existing premises licence by extending authorised hours for the sale of alcohol and opening hours to commence from 600 hours and end at midnight, midnight Monday to Sunday. Aldi Sudbury has benefited from a premises licence issued by Babergh District Council since the 7th of November 2005, and prior to that from a magistrate's liquor licence under the 1964 Licensing Act. A summary of the current premises licence is attached to this report as Appendix A. A hearing is necessary to determine the application following receipt of a relevant representation which has not been withdrawn. The licensing authority must carry out its functions under the Act with a view to promoting the licensing objectives, which are the prevention of crime and disorder, public safety, the prevention of public nuisance, and the protection of children from harm. In carrying out its licensing functions, the licensing authority must have regard to its statement of licensing policy, published under Section 5 of the Act, and any guidance issued by the Secretary of State under Section 182. Where revisions are made to the legislation or guidance issued by the Secretary of State, there may be a period of time when the local statement of licensing policy is inconsistent with these revisions. In these circumstances, the licensing authority will have regard and give appropriate weight to the relevant changes, guidance, and also its own statement of licensing policy. The subcommittee will also be aware of the Human Rights Act 1998 considerations, specifically Article 6 for the applicant and Articles 8 and 1 of Protocol 1 for those raising representations, when determining applications for the grant of a variation licence. The subcommittee must, having regard to the representations made, take such of the steps, if any, it considers appropriate for the promotion of the licensing objectives. To grant the variation subject to conditions which are consistent with the operating schedule accompanying the application, modified to such extent as the authority considers appropriate for promotion of the licensing objectives and subject to any mandatory conditions which must be included in the licence, or to reject the whole or part of the application. For these purposes, conditions of the licence are modified if any of them are altered or omitted or any new condition is added. Any party aggrieved by this decision taken by the licensing authority in respect of this application has a statutory right of appeal to the Magistrates' Court. And that concludes my submission, Chair.
Thank you very much, Catherine, for that. I now ask the parties present here if they have any questions for the licensing officer, and I start with the applicant. Ms. Gilligan, do you have any questions for the licensing officer, please?
No, thank you, Chair.
Thank you very much. And Mr. Finnegan, do you have any questions for the licensing officer, please?
No, thank you, Chair.
Thank you very much. And now I'll ask my colleagues on the subcommittee. Councillor Carpendale, do you have any questions for the officer, please? We can't hear you, Councillor.
Sorry.
Thank you.
Got some problems this morning. No questions at this stage. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Councillor Nunn, do you have any questions for the officer?
None at this time.
Thank you very much. Thank you. Thank you. I now ask the applicant, which will be Ms. Gilligan, to present the case. Thank you very much, Ms. Gilligan. The floor is yours, as they say.
Thank you very much, Chair. Apologies, I tried to go a little earlier. As I was said a few moments ago, just by way of background, this application is one of a programme of 400 applications submitted nationwide. These are for Aldi stores, which are essentially the oldest stores in the estate, which have current premises licences which run 8 until 11. Over the past 12 to 18 months, this store, as a number of others, has opened at 7 a.m, either by virtue of temporary event notices or to achieve social distancing, which was the motivation for this tranche of applications. Now, 4 applications, and obviously having read the representations on page 35 and 36, I just want to say from the outset that Aldi are content to amend this application from 6 until midnight to 7 until 11, which essentially leaves the terminal hour as it is on the current premises licence, which you'll see in your report currently runs 8 until 11 Monday to Saturday, oh, beg your pardon, 10 until 10:30 on Sundays. We're content to leave the terminal hours as is, but seeking a 7 o'clock start time, simply to achieve, to be able to avoid the need for temporary event notices moving forward and to be able to achieve social distancing. The business genuinely hoped that social distancing wouldn't be necessary again, but I think as the last 12 months and current circumstances illustrate, we can never say never again. There is no intention for these premises to suddenly and there was never an intention to open and trade 6 until midnight. It was genuinely just to achieve maximum operational flexibility. Obviously wouldn't wish to diminish from the representations and concerns that have obviously been raised by residents, so hence the amendment. So we're essentially just seeking now an amendment to the start time to 7 a.m. And again, it isn't that Aldi want to permanently change trading hours and start opening all their 900 stores at 7 a.m, but without the variation, it can only be done with temporary event notices, and you and your colleagues will be aware of the time limits that those that are imposed with that application process. For the sake of complete transparency as well, I would say we do have temporary event notices for next week. This store will open at 7 for Christmas week, Monday the 20th to Christmas Eve. And then, yeah, and so I just wanted to sort of, to make that clear. But this application really is to achieve operational flexibility moving forward, so that should social distancing or at seasonal times such as Christmas, should a 7 o'clock opening be required, it can be done without the need for further applications. And I would say in terms of the temporary event notices, there were obviously no representations at all from police or EHO. So I hope that gives you the background to the application, the reasoning why, but having read the representations, happy to make that compromise suggestion.
Thank you very much, Ms. Gilligan. I'm just going to ask Mr. DeLue before I proceed further. Mr. DeLue, are you happy for that amendment to be put forward?
Yes, that's perfectly at the applicant's discretion to make that amendment.
Thank you very much. I now ask Mr. Finnegan if he has any questions or for Ms. Gilligan.
Yes, thank you. Thank you for that, Ms. Gilligan. I appreciate the attempt at compromise there. I do understand, but the concern still remains the amount of movement and disruption the later part of the day, especially. It's quite detrimental to the sleep patterns, etc., etc. Now, the way the car park entrance is, when cars come in, the headlights beam right up into the bedroom.
Sorry, Mr. Gilligan, do you have any actual questions? You'll be giving your submissions shortly, but do you have any actual questions for Ms. Gilligan at this time?
No questions at this time, thank you. It's Mr. Finnegan, by the way.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Mr. Finnegan. I'm now going to ask the subcommittee if they have any questions for Ms. Gilligan. Councillor Carpendale, please.
Thank you, Chair. Good morning, Ms. Gilligan. Can I just have you confirm exactly what you're proposing? In all cases, no start before 7 a.m.
Yes.
And in all cases, finish by 2300 hours?
Yes, we're not seeking to amend the terminal hour at all on the existing licence. So what we'd be seeking, and given, I'm trying to give as much assurance as I can, given the Sunday trading restrictions, I'm content for Sunday to remain as is. So that would be 10 until 22:30. And then on Mondays to Saturdays, we'd be seeking 0700 to 2300 hours. At the moment, the licence is 0800 to 2300 hours. So in terms of the end of the day, we're not looking to change anything. We're not looking to change the licence at all. It is one additional hour, 07 to 08, Monday to Saturday.
Good morning. Okay, and obviously because of the sundry trading restrictions, you're just looking for flexibility within that 6-hour time slot?
Well, at the moment, the current premises license says 10 to 10:30.
Yeah.
But because of Sunday trading, it's up to, it's, as with everybody of a similar size, we're bound by those restrictions, or that's the trump card already. So we're content to leave our license on Sunday as is, and as I say, it's just that additional hour Monday to Saturday.
Monday to Saturday. Okay, thank you. That's helpful. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Councillor Nunn, do you have a question?
Just a point of a note, really. I've just noticed that Mr. Finnegan lives with an old friend of mine. Does the applicant have any objections to that?
No, I trust your judgment, Councillor Nunn.
Thank you very much.
No.
Thank you. I thought I'd just better mention that.
Thank you. Mr. DeLu, are you happy for that declaration?
Yes, so long as Councillor Nunn can assure everybody that he will make his determination purely on the facts of the application before him and in consideration of the licensing objectives.
Absolutely, yes.
Yeah.
Thank you. And Mr. Finnegan, I'm going to ask you.
If I may say, I don't know Mr. Nunn, and I wasn't unaware of this relationship, so I just want that put on the record as well for Ms. Gilligan's information. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, David.
That's very kind of you, Mr. Finnegan. So we will go forward. So there were no questions for the applicant, Councillor Nunn.
No.
No, and my question has already been answered too. So I have no questions either. Thank you very much. Mr. Finnegan, there is now your opportunity to present your case if you would like to carry on, and thank you.
Yes, thank you very much, Chair. Just as I was speaking earlier on about the traffic coming into the car park and the lights that shine through directly through the bedroom window that I sleep in, that's a cause of disruption. The noise levels are going to be quite disruptive as well. People potentially wheeling trolleys about later on in the evening than they are at the moment. I appreciate the licenses for 11 o'clock as it stands, but that extra hour makes a big difference in terms of the sleep. I don't keep very well, and obviously sleep is important to me, and obviously everybody else in the house. And it's very difficult when you've got lorries coming. I appreciate Miss Gilligan has said that the store will only be open between the hours 7 and 11, but delivery lorries have come to deliver products to the store out with these hours quite often. Quite often they're a lot earlier than 7 o'clock in the morning. It can be between 5 and 6 in the morning as well. And I'm worried that will be the case later on in the evening as well, especially if COVID restrictions do become more of a problem for everybody. It might be difficult again with drivers, etc. They might be delivering out with the normal times. I appreciate the need for flexibility on this issue, but I think that's also a problem because these lorries are refrigerated lorries and they make a hell of a racket whilst they're sitting delivering the products. I just thought I'd bring that into the scenario. As you'll have seen from what I sent into the committee, concerned about the lorries, concerned about the noise and the lights, etc., concerned about the movement in the car park, also concerned that should there be a further lockdown and licensed premises have to close at some point, obviously then that will encourage people to go to supermarkets to get their alcohol, and this might be also a problem. So I'm just bringing these issues. Other than that, a regular user of the store and appreciate the store, but a bit concerned about these issues, if you could consider them. Thank you very much.
You're on mute, Chair, sorry.
Thank you. Thank you very much. There was a noise outside, so I went on mute. Thank you, Mr. Finnegan, very much. Thank you. I'm now going to ask Miss Gilligan if she has any question for Mr. Finnegan.
No, thank you.
None at all, thank you. I now ask my subcommittee if they have any questions. Councillor Carpendale, please.
Thank you, Chair. Good morning, Mr. Finnegan. It sounds as if you are concerned about the issues as they exist at the moment. You'll have heard that the applicant is basically saying to change the licence by 1 hour in the morning. I think if we ask the applicant in a moment if that will impact on deliveries or not, that might allay some of your concerns. Does that sound fair? Because the evening closures are not actually going to change. I do have sympathy for what you're saying, because I live quite close to the Coop supermarket in my village, and I do understand what you mean about headlights coming into the bedroom window at night. I'm afraid it's just one of those things. But is it just the morning hour that concerns you and the possible change to delivery lorries?
No, it's the morning and the evening, because it currently closes at 10 p.m. in the evening. And if they remain open, I appreciate the licence. In terms of the licence, it's open till 11 o'clock. But in terms of the disruption, that's going to continue for an additional hour. So
it's about opening hours rather than the licensing changing.
Pretty much, yeah. The fact that the alcohol license and the implications thereafter, as I mentioned, with regards to possible effects of COVID, etc., that could be problematic in terms of the amount of use and disruption that's going to be caused.
Okay, all right. Thank you, Mr. Finnegan.
Is that the only question, Councillor?
Yes, it is.
Thank you. Councillor Nunn, do you have a question for Mr. Finnegan?
Yes, Councillor Carpendale basically asked the question I was just going to ask anyway, so at this point, no.
Thank you very much. Mr. Finnegan, I do have a question, please, if you wouldn't mind answering. Could I ask you, is it the noise or is it the light pollution that affects you mostly?
It's both, actually. They're both equally as problematic, unfortunately. Okay. Especially, as I said, with the delivery lorries in particular, as I said, the refrigeration units on them will make quite a racket. I understand that people need to get their food and that needs to come to the store, etc. But if it's going to be extended, it's going to be really quite upsetting in terms of my health, and obviously everybody else is in the house.
Thank you very much. I'm going to go to Councillor Carpendale first, and then I'm going to come back to Ms. Gilligan. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. I was just wondering if some of our questions, in fact, are straying away from licensing and maybe into planning or other zones that maybe Mr. DeLu can advise.
I'll assist with the summing up. Before we go into private session, I'll make a couple of comments in respect to that, if that's okay.
Oh, right. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Ms. Gilligan, thank you.
All I was going to ask, and perhaps a caution against inviting this question, but I just wondered, Mr. Finnegan, whether you'd ever raised any complaints with the council's environmental health officers about, about the disruption you've commented on.
I haven't personally, because I've not been long living at the premises. But I noticed the signage going up, and I was concerned by I mean, it's already quite noisy at times when they deliver, especially as early in the morning or late at night. That's basically where I'm coming from. This is a licensing issue, and yes, as I say, I don't object so much about the fact that they're selling alcohol, yes, other than the fact that it's going to encourage more people to use the store at these later and earlier hours.
Yes, thank you very much, Mr. Finnegan and Ms. Gilligan. Thank you indeed. Before Mr. DeLu actually states this, I will actually explain that we are looking at the alcohol licence rather than any other planning issue. But thank you. If there are no more questions, I'm going to move on to the closing submissions. No more questions from anyone at the moment? No, thank you very much. I'm going to ask the licensing officer, Catherine, to give a closing statement, please, and to summarise any points which need clarity. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. I did just have a question of Miss Gilligan, if I may. With regards to the changing in timings, is that applicable for both the opening hours and the alcohol sales? Yeah, perfect. Thank you.
Yes.
I have. That's okay. Thank you. I have no other closing submission statements to make, Chair. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I now ask the same of the applicant, if you would like to give a closing submission, please, Miss Gilligan.
Thank you. Thank you. I will be as brief as possible. I just for the avoidance of any doubt, that there isn't an intention to change the end of the operating day for Aldi. There is currently a licence which goes Monday to Saturday until 11. The store does currently close generally at 10 o'clock, as I'm sure Mr. Finnegan will confirm. What we're looking at is the morning, and I think it was maybe Councillor Carbondale that touched on this. This additional hour will make no difference at all in terms of our delivery runs, delivery times, etc. It is not going to impact or cause a greater thoroughfare traffic of delivery times. And then and it is also at this stage not intended that this will be a permanent alteration that starts tomorrow and runs forever. It is for operational flexibility. Now, I think all I would say in a more general licensing term, as you and your colleagues will be well aware, this isn't a once and for all. The licensing system has a review process built in there. And if complaints are made by Mr. Finnegan or indeed anyone else which are founded with evidence linked to our store, this matter could obviously, I sincerely hope I don't come back before you, but this matter could be brought back before you for you to make a decision based on evidence linked to our store. But at the moment, all we are seeking is an additional hour to the licence Monday to Saturday, in the absence of any complaints, or adverse comments from any of the responsible authorities.
Thank you very much. Thank you. I now move on to item 6, which is the exclusion of the public. I'm just going to check that all parties have had sufficient time to put forward their case. Are you all quite happy at the moment with that? Thank you very much. And I have to read this motion to you.
Chair, sorry, apologies, Chair. Just before we go into private section, there's just a couple of things I think I should say sort of while the meeting is still open.
Yes, please do.
Okay. First of all, the store will always be subject to the Sunday trading hours, the Sunday Trading Act from 1994, which restricts opening times for stores that are over 280 square metres in retail space, which I'm sure this store is. There's also the Christmas Day Opening Act, which they will also have to comply with as well, which generally prevents opening on Christmas Day. There are exceptions in the schedule of that act. Just to raise that first. And secondly, just to remind that we are considering just the application with regards to the alcohol sales. There is nothing stopping Aldi opening any hours they wish to, provided they're in compliance with those two acts, and also whether there are any planning conditions attached to the property, which I'm not aware of. So there is actually nothing stopping the store opening for longer hours. Obviously, they will not be entitled to sell alcohol for all those hours, but you often see in stores where shutters are pulled down in front of alcohol areas anyway. So what I'm trying to say is that what you need to consider is the impact that the extra hour of the alcohol license will have on the licensing objectives, and we're looking really only at the public nuisance objective. I don't think any issues have been raised with regard to crime, protection, children from harm, or public safety. It is really the public nuisance aspect. So you need to look at it in the context of a general store which is entitled to sell all sorts of groceries, and knowing Aldi, all sorts of other bits and pieces as well. So I just wanted, this would be something that I would normally say in private session, but there's no reason for me not to give you this advice openly before you go in to make your decision.
Thank you very much, Delu, and I hope that was transparent for both parties here. So thank you. I will now read the motion. On the basis that the subcommittee considers that the public interest in excluding the public outweighs the public interest in its deliberation being held in public, it is resolved that under section 100A in brackets 4 of the Local Government Act 1972, the public will be excluded from the meeting for item 13 on the grounds that it involves the likely disclosure of exempt information as defined in Part 1 of Schedule 12 of the Act, on the grounds set out in Regulation 14 in brackets 2 of the Licensing Act 2003 in brackets Hearings Regulations 2005. And I require a seconder.
Seconded.
Thank you. Councillor Carpenter has seconded the motion. What will happen now, for the benefit especially of Mr Finnegan, if you're not aware, we will now go into private session. The live streaming will be stopped. When we have made a decision, we will be back with you. And also, Ms Gilligan, I'm sure you're very aware, but that was for you as well. So thank you very much. Thank you.
Chair, can we just check with
Thank you very much. I now hand back to Mr. DeLu as the subcommittee have returned. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. The subcommittee have considered all the representations made before them today in accordance with all the relevant guidance. And having considered that, they are satisfied that the extra hour opening and for the alcohol sales on in the mornings from 7 a.m. will have little or no material difference to the operation of the store, and that granting of the extension is unlikely to contribute to any adverse impact of any of the licensing objectives, and therefore have decided to grant the application as amended by the applicant this morning. As mentioned in the licensing officer's report earlier, there is a statutory right of appeal for any party who's made an application or representations who is aggrieved by the decision or the imposition of any condition, and that application should be made to the Magistrates Court within 21 days of receiving a written notification of the decision. Thank you, Chair. Back to you.
Thank you, Mr. DeLu. And just to confirm that the hours will be, Mr. DeLu, to confirm the hours.
Sorry, Chair, yes. They are from 7 a.m. till 11 p.m. And my understanding that is the licensing is for 7 days a week, although as mentioned earlier, they will be subject to Sunday trading regulations.
Thank you very much. That's just to make it clear for absolutely everyone. I do have a few comments as chairman that I would like to make. It is obvious from this hearing this morning that there are some existing issues between Aldi and the residents, and we would encourage some forms of communication between the parties to resolve this issue. If these issues are not satisfactorily resolved, obviously there is always the opportunity for the residents to resort to the council's environmental department. I would also like to comment, we cannot request and we cannot recommend, but I would suggest that perhaps Aldi would like to consider installing some form of acoustic material to the fencing of the neighbouring properties, and perhaps also consider some blackout blinds for those properties to help with their relationships. As I stated, we cannot request, we cannot recommend, but we would suggest that perhaps Aldi would like to open communications with the parties concerned. And thank you. Thank you very much. I now close this meeting. I thank everyone present for being here, officers, subcommittee, and the members of the public, Ms Gilligan and Mr Finnegan. Thank you so much for attending. The meeting is now ending at 10:52.
Just commenting on your comments, I don't think we have any contact details for Mr Finnegan, and the letter was, as I understand it, it was signed Mr. Matford. So if Mr Finnegan's happy to give an email, perhaps to your licensing officers, either or, which can be passed on, then I can pass that I can pass that on to the appropriate area manager for dialogue to open.
Thank you very much. That's very positive. Mr Finnegan, you wanted to say something, but you're on mute before you try. We all get caught out. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. It's just to say I'm happy for that information to be passed on by a member of the council team if they're happy to do so.
Thank you. Catherine, I'm just going to bring you in here. Catherine, did you hear that confirmation, please?
I did, yes, Chair.
Thank you very much. Thank you. So there will be some communication between the two parties, and thank you very much. So I do now end the meeting, and if I may, I would like to wish everyone a very happy Christmas. Thank you.